Mark Levin, host of The Levin Show and Life, Liberty, and Levin, is joining us from Virginia. Mr. Levin, thank you for accepting our invitation. You know, right now, Iran is almost in total darkness. We can get very limited information from Iranian citizens, only those who have Starlink or some who use multiple VPNs. But the message we hear from them is that many of them think there's no clear solution left in the streets because the Islamic Republic has slaughtered them. Because over 12,000 people, now the number is over 20,000, have been killed, and many of them went out into the streets with hope that the President of the United States had told them, "Go, help is on the way." Just a few hours ago, we heard from Mr. Trump in Davos, who said the Islamic Republic has asked for negotiations and that the U.S. will negotiate with them as well. Many Iranian protesters are asking themselves which one they should listen to. Help is on the way, or negotiations with the clerics ruling Iran.
Well, a couple of things first. I don't speak for the president, and I don't advise the president. I speak for myself. But I can tell you that tens of millions of Americans stand with the people in Persia. There's no question about it. We know the regime there is Hitleresque, that the regime is Nazi-like, that the regime is slaughtering people, innocent people, especially young people, raping them, pillaging the towns. We know that that regime is the enemy of the American people. They've made that abundantly clear. We know that they still want to build nuclear weapons. They back terrorism in our country and throughout Europe, and of course throughout the Middle East. But the people they terrorize the most are the Persian people, and I feel horrible about what's taking place. And all I can do is use my platforms to draw as much attention to this as I can, because people might have short memories, the press has short memories, and the immediacy and urgency of it starts to wear off, and I am committed to making sure as best I can that doesn't happen. As for military operations, I don't have any inside information. I am very pleased that we are moving really massive amount of assets into the region. The reports say to give options to my country. My views are well known. My views are that revolutions need some outside help. Our revolution did. We wouldn't be in America. We wouldn't have won the Battle of Yorktown. We wouldn't have won the Revolutionary War, but for the help of the French and to a lesser extent, the Spanish. That's just a fact. And most revolutions, like the counter-revolution that's going on in Iran today, need some outside help. Europe is feckless. Many of the leaders in Europe, in my view, are quislings. And I think a number of the Arab countries in that area don't want to see that regime toppled. I think they worry about their own regimes, whatever the reason. I mean, my view is that I don't know what level of support. I don't know how to do it. I'm not a military man, but I feel like this regime needs to go. Khomeini needs to go for the sake of the tens of millions of people who are living in what I call Iran today as a concentration camp. And for my people, the people of the United States, this threat has to be dealt with once and for all. That's my view.
I think for protesting Iranian citizens, your words are completely understandable, but for an average American voter, in your opinion, at a time when many Americans are tired of foreign intervention, how can it be explained why the role of the United States is important and crucial for the U.S. itself at this moment?
Well, I think we Americans are uniquely aware of how important this is. We do have elements in our society, the isolationists, some even worse, who take the side of the enemy. I've been dealing with them for a long time now, but they don't represent MAGA, which is the base now of the president's support in the Republican administration. 90% supported the attacks on the nuclear sites in Iran, 90%. And so you have a strong Republican support for confronting Iran. The Democrat Party is a whole nother story, but we have a Republican president, Republican Congress right now. I don't think it's a matter of selling it to the American people. I think it's a matter of making sure the American people are fully aware of what's taking place, why it's important to us, why this regime is a threat to us. It's the only regime on the face of the earth that I know of that keeps talking about using nuclear weapons to attack us. Now, we did take out the nukes of the regime. But, you got your foreign minister out there, such as he is, going on about, well, you can take out those nukes, but you can't take our memory away. And that's exactly right. It's exactly why I think we need to take them away. So this is a problem. It is a national security problem for the United States. That regime is allied with Communist China. It is allied with Putin. It is allied with North Korea. It spreads terrorism throughout the globe, including in our own country. And I think that message has gotten to a lot of Americans. I think the American people as a whole support the people in Iran and want them to succeed. And I think if whatever decision the president makes, the American people will back him, and that includes if military action is taken.
During the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, many realized that the Islamic Republic is nothing more than a paper tiger. For many people, the question might be, why? For about half a century, the United States has tolerated a regime that, from the very beginning of its rise to power, held American diplomats hostage in Tehran for 444 days, has repeatedly taken foreign citizens hostage, and has constantly threatened U.S. interests, whether directly or indirectly, in places like Afghanistan and Iraq. It has exported terrorism all over the world, and even the United States itself considers the Islamic Republic the biggest sponsor of terrorism. So why has a regime that, unlike the Russian Federation, at least up to now has not had nuclear power, been tolerated for 47 years?
Well, early on, like in the Reagan administration, which I served as chief of staff to the Attorney General, they were focused on destroying the Soviet Union. And that was a big nut to crack. And so we got involved in supporting freedom movements in Nicaragua, freedom movements in Afghanistan, freedom movements in Angola. Reagan had to rebuild the military after Carter, who was a disaster, and of course ushered in the regime we're talking about in Iran right now. And so there was a lot going on. But your general point, I think, is correct. Iran's far away from the United States, so people say, well, it's 7,000 miles away, it's 8,000 miles away, how can they harm us? Well, now we know. They've got ballistic missiles, they're building more, and the other day, they just tested a missile that goes 10,000 miles. And I read that they fired it off into Siberia with the collusion of Russia, of course. Well, 10,000 miles can hit our East Coast. Now, this is a regime that's on its back. The economy's dying. We took out their nuclear weapons. The Israelis defeated them on the battlefield, and yet here they have a 10,000-mile missile that they just practiced with. And if they put a nuclear warhead on it, they can hit New York. So the problem is, even with communist regimes, to some extent, you can negotiate with them, although I'm not one of those that believes in all that, but you can. But with a radical Islamist, ideological, 7th century, barbaric, primitive regime like the one in Iran, there is no negotiation that gets you where you want to go in the end. They'll talk. Oh, they talk all the time. But the fact of the matter is, they don't intend on giving up their mission. That's why they so brutally suppress the people in Iran, and they will brutally do what they think they should do, which of course is immoral and unconscionable to any other people in the world. I can't speak for all these past presidents. Again, I can only speak for myself, which is I don't really need any more reminding from any newspaper article or magazine article or television host or anything else how bad this regime is, and that somebody better do something about it. And if it's not us, nobody's going to do anything about it.
Many of the slogans chanted by protesters in Iran are against a religious government. Even some of the protesters have even set fire to religious symbols like mosques. Many say they are tired and want to take off their headscarves. In recent protests, women have played a very significant role. Unlike many other protests we've seen in the Middle East, this one may have started for economic reasons, but the pain isn't just economic. The struggle now is between the protesters and an Islamist government. How important do you think this is for the long-term interests of the United States in the region? Because we've rarely, if ever, seen a movement like this in the Middle East before.
No, you're right. Well, I've been saying the people of Persia, the Persian people, are basically Westerners. You all have a long history, thousands of years, in science and technology and education and in philosophy and things of that sort. And you're a real culture that goes way back, and you've contributed so much to mankind over your history. And so it's very different. Iran is not Qatar. Iran is not Saudi Arabia. Iran is Persia, and it's very different. And that's why there was an alliance with the United States for the longest time between Persia and the United States and so forth. We had a lot of shared interests and belief systems. Well, there's a difference, between political Islam and people who practice and are practicing Muslims. And we have Muslim reformers in our country that make the point about political Islam and the fact that it doesn't embrace the Enlightenment, it doesn't embrace limited government, it doesn't embrace any of that, and is utterly incompatible with it. And we see it in parts of our country, Islamists, who basically have the agenda of trying to conquer our cities and conquer our states, rather than live and let live, enjoy your own faith and let other people enjoy their faith. And the problem is, in Iran, you've got a whole government like this. And again, this is it's not really a revolution any more than Hitler was a revolution. It is a sickening movement in which they try and spread that belief system all over the world. But again, I try and make it utterly clear that we're talking about Persians who have a different culture, who have a different background, who've had major contributions to humankind. I find in our country, actually, people who've left there and come to the United States and have immigrated here and have assimilated into our system, I find them to be among some of the most patriotic and contributing citizens in the United States. And I also try to make the point, can you imagine if the people were free there? The contributions to science and technology and medicine and art and music and so forth that would be going on today in Iran and in the whole world, if the Persian people were free and could make these contributions. But instead, they're suffering. They're trying to survive. They're hiding. They're trying to put food on the table. It's just a horrendous situation. I feel so horrible about it.
You mentioned Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Now, traditionally, Saudi Arabia itself hasn't had particularly good relations with Iran. But in this particular case, it seems that they've either prevented American intervention or asked the Americans not to get involved. The Qataris, well, they've been much more outspoken in their support for the Islamic Republic. You've talked about this many times on your TV and radio shows, and you've expressed your own frustration about it. How much do you think the huge expenses that countries like Qatar are making in the United States, their direct and indirect lobbying, and even more discreet efforts matter? Even within the Republican Party itself, figures like Tucker Carlson and many others, can they influence the United States' decision on whether to actually intervene or help the protesters?
I call him Qatarlson for a reason, and I don't think he has any influence. I think he likes to take pictures with powerful people. I think he's basically destroyed himself through his own, ludicrous statements and his own positions. I mean, when you take positions against the United States, and his last position was talking up Iran having a nuclear weapon, I mean, at some point, you just become an irrelevancy. And in my view, that's what he's become. But him aside, look, I can't predict what the United States is going to do. I don't give advice to the president on what he should do, but I will say this about our president. He's a good man. He's the only president since this regime has been in power to actually take action militarily against them directly on their nuclear sites. The prior President Biden was funding the regime, which was so appalling. We had Obama, who cut a deal to ensure that they would get nuclear weapons. We've had Republican presidents, even George W. Bush, talking about they will not get nuclear weapons, and yet they didn't do anything. And this president did. He took out their nuclear sites. And I feel very strongly he's a man of his word. He's not going to telegraph to me or anybody else, nor should he, what ultimately he plans to do about it. My view is And my hope is that we will do something about it, something that's effective and so forth. But from my perspective, I'm not a policymaker, decision maker. I will continue to voice my opinion as I always do on a whole bunch of subjects. And this I feel is very, very important. I mean, if you have an ounce of morality in you and you have a conscience and you believe in God, then you cannot sit quietly at this moment. You just cannot, because this is just so horrendous. And we in our country, we've been raised both from a faith perspective and a governmental sort of school perspective. Our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution protects the individual. We have a whole Bill of Rights that protects the individual from government. We have a Declaration of Independence that says each human being is sovereign. God gives each human being sovereignty. If you dehumanize human beings, if you slaughter them en masse because they don't agree with you, because you don't want representative government, because you want to impose your will, whether it's a religious view or some other view, this goes completely against the American founding and the American value system on which this nation was created in the first place. And that's why Americans, at least historically, identify with movements like what the Persian people are doing in Iran and so forth. So there is that belief system, there is that goodwill, there is that value system in our country. It's not necessarily reflected by some of these Democrat politicians or some of these what I call these neo-fascists, isolationists and so forth, but it is reflected in the body politic of the American people. And I want to assure the Persian people that tens of millions of Americans do support you and are very upset about what's being done. And we're well aware that they've turned out the lights and all the communication systems so they can continue the ravaging of the people without the world being able to see it. But we know it's going on.
You mentioned those who have ideological positions and why they might oppose it, but there might also be some who don't have an ideological perspective, who instead take a pragmatic view and say that historical experience has shown, at least in modern history, that after World War II, the United States has not been very successful in bringing democracy or changing regimes. In Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya, what guarantee is there, even if we have the best intentions, to do such a thing? What guarantee is there that American fighter jets could actually bring freedom and democracy to the Iranian people?
Sometimes you just do what's right. There is no guarantee, but this regime's weaker now than it's ever been. And from my perspective, I speak for myself, if this regime survives, then it will become potentially stronger than ever because it'll think it has nothing to fear. And that becomes a huge problem, obviously for the people there, but obviously for us too, in the United States, and not just the United States, Europe, the Western world, the free world, because they'll be more driven than ever, and they will think that they duck the worst of bullets, and so that there's really nothing that could stop them. So I am concerned about that.